Second take at recording a video of me attempting to make a super. I had a bunch of like 1x8 laying around. I think that like this right here is 1x10, which I bought with the intent of making deeps. But then I realized that the 1x10 is a little bit shorter than 1x10 because of the finish that they put on it. And I knew that it was shorter, but I thought it was still good enough for a box until I realized that the frame rest made it a little bit shorter. And I tried to do this with some nukes, 5 frames. And the frames hit each other. Once I stacked them on top of each other, the top frames would sit down on the rest of the bottom frames, which crushed bees, which wasn't really all so good. So I had a whole bunch of the extra stuff laying around. I had to rip it down to size to make it the 6 inches. And I watched some stuff on YouTube about how people do it, and I have my dado blade at 7/8 there, and I made this little jig, 3D printed the stub that I needed because there's no way I was cutting a stub that small on a table saw. Tried it. Had lots of mistakes. I chalked this up to a learning experience. Listened to some measurements online rather than just testing them myself. So this first cut right there, I ended up making too deep, and then I had to offset it and cut it all again. So there's lots of gaps in it, which in of itself wouldn't be too bad, except they go all the way down. And then just some of the height measurements for the dado didn't quite work out right. Like that right there is supposed to be the whole 3/8 up for that first cut on a rabbit. And that didn't quite work. It was like too shallow. That cut too shallow. That I don't think matters too much as long as you get the dado right for that first cut. But the 3/8 was not right, which meant that this started a little bit shallow and then got deeper and then got deeper. And so they don't quite fit together right. And for whatever reason, my rabbit cut got narrower there. So it's like it's the right width there, but then it narrows down a little bit too much on that end for some reason. So that side doesn't quite work. And then my compass started twisting. I don't know exactly why. Well, I mean, I know why, but I thought it kind of dumb because I got that as finger tight as I could. But then just by putting pressure right there, after a while I looked down and I was like, that's not 90 degrees. That's something else. So all of my cuts were cut at a diagonal. I had to put it back out to straighten them so that they would fit with the other box, which also widened some of these out wider than they needed to be. I guess what you do is there's a little hole there that I was able to put an Allen key through, get some leverage, and just really crank that down. Hope I'm not stripping anything out, but that kept it at a nice 90 there. And that's all the learning experience I had for making this super. But I decided for what I'm planning to use it for is literally just to protect some sugar jars that I have on some feeders at the very top of the hive. There's going to be a great big board, kind of like an inner cover all the way in there, the David Burns bee feeder. And I figure for what I need it to do, it's going to work. You know, man, that's not going to be airproof, bee-proof, probably never actually have bees on the inside of it, so I'm not going to worry too much about handles or anything like that. I think I'm just going to give it a little decorative spray coat just because I want it to be a color, even if bees will never use it. But yeah, I am actually, despite the mess that I made there, pretty happy with the learning experience of it all, because now having just kind of figured out some of the measurements for this little jig that I have, which is being held in by only one screw because it didn't have 2 of the right length, I feel like I'd probably make the next one a lot better. But I don't need another one. And it is pretty much guaranteed cheaper to buy this than ever to make it. The wood alone costs more at like a store, even not counting for having to trim it and the wastes that you get, than it is to just buy a super from your favorite bee supplier. They're like $20 to get something like that, 22, you know, in the soft pine. If you wanted to make it out of like cedar or something like that, then it might be better to make it yourself. But if you're just a regular backyard beekeeper, just order one from your bee supply store. But there you go.